Are you one of those people where you find inspiration in absolutely everything and anything? Whether you're out about, you take a quick snap of something, you think, oh, I'll use that later, or you might be the complete opposite and you are struggling, you're procrastinating and you're waiting and trying to think of where your sketchbook's going to go and how you're going to make these final pieces. Finding inspiration is difficult, and that's what this video is all about. It's about how to find inspiration in the best of times, the worst of times, in things that you might think are completely meaningless, but things that I found useful to find inspiration and get projects going throughout my career. Welcome to the BlueMogu Big Education Podcast. Today we're talking about finding inspiration, where to find it, how to find it. We're going to go through a couple of videos that I've created, a couple of resources. I don't know how many parts there's going to be to this because there's quite a lot of content that we've got ready or waiting for this type of thing. But I'm going to start with a couple of videos that we've got where the kind of travel diaries that I used to take when I was traveling around Asia. I know there's some videos of South Korea, some in Hong Kong, some in China and whatnot. And they're just kind of visual diaries and capturing different artifacts, things like that. So let's dive straight into it. Let's have a look at these videos. I'm going to walk you through. There's some typography and some words across some of the screens to help you come along. If you don't have access to kind of resources like library resources, these are just some useful resources there. You can take a print screen, use some of the visual images, print them off, work with those, revisit some of the sketchbook workshops that we've done, and start to experiment with those. That's if you don't have access to the type of resources like the internet at any point. But if you've got the internet, you've obviously got access to a lot of different books, a lot of resources, a lot of visual content, and that can be the opposite sometimes where you've got absolutely so much inspiration, you need to figure out a way to refine it. So this should also try to give you some tips and techniques to be able to create a strategy basically of how to inspire yourself and how to try and focus and hone it in. Just start with some simple things. So let's get into it. Let's have a look at these videos. Welcome. So today we're in South Korea and we're looking at all the different things that we was inspired by on this trip. So it's walking through the streets, it's walking through temples, it's walking through the city on the trains, exploring. I was exploring by myself and just trying to find these interesting things that I thought would be inspiring, things that I could use later. And I started off with to try and break this down into something that's bite-sized, so you might be able to use it for different streams. So if you're interested in graphics, there might be some keywords here that you can have a think about and reflect on afterwards, and likewise for fashion and all sorts, animation and video later. Let's have a look at it. So here we've got some different signage, some different colors, some materials and branding for graphic design. Got some geometry for architecture. There might be things that in the areas that you live where you think it's particular style. You might even not even have noticed it, but you might walk through the city centre or the village or wherever it might be, and then just start to reflect and think, what's unique about that? What story does it tell? Where did that come from? What if it was in a different colour? What if it had this shape or something like that? Use it and just constantly reflect on the mundane and make it interesting. So there's loads of different buildings that I thought was interesting here because you've got loads of different layers there's lots of different angles, and there's like these gateways through the buildings. So for graphics and things like that, you could work out with layout. And obviously architecture, you've got this contrast with these temples here where you've got loads of different symbolism, you've got different materials, you've got culture that comes with it. Here, there's loads of different things going on here where you've got music, you've got outfit, you've got your dresses, you've got quite a nice colour palette that's running straight through between the outfits and then the flowers that are blooming and then the autumn colours. Same here, you've got some contrast between the backgrounds of like some architecture peeping through this archway gateway, and then you've got these costumes. So if you're doing fashion design, these costumes might inspire you, the type of materials, the type of colours, the hats and the accessories, but equally the location. If it's for film, why choose that location? What was they doing? What story are they telling? If you was animating, you might think about how could you storyboard that and what happens next. You could make color swatches, and back to fashion. If you was doing draping and working with muslin cloth and things like that, you might want to think about how they made these types of costumes, or how would you deconstruct it, or if you was to make it more modern, how would you do so? So here we've got this really interesting scene where we've got these nice autumnal colours. You've got colour swatches that you could pick out there. You could use Photoshop or Illustrator or some other tools to do it, or you could mix them yourself using paints or Posca pens or watercolours. But you've got this interesting, like old and new, you've got this architecture, this strong structures right across. And then with the new building, and then you've got a pagoda in the front of it, where it's quite an interesting like juxtaposition. And then moving forward, we've got these kind of shapes, and then vacant space, negative space. We've got repeat patterns in interiors. I stopped on this one where we've got these colour swatches that have naturally come out again, similar to the juxtaposition of the architecture, but here it's this kind of nice, it looks like a Instagram type post, but it's got these nice colour palette, colour swatches, which you'd probably find on other websites like Pinterest, where they're broken down and then there'd be things where they're mixed together. But quite easily you could use some of the things that we mentioned in other sketchbook episodes and finding inspiration episodes, where we're talking about using shape and colour, or typography and colour, or using different materials and colour as your primary inspiration to start from, and then starting to apply that to a type of theme. Again, through using this as colour. National Museum I went to, there was loads of different interesting things in here, from like animations to old artifacts. There was these cell animations where it's like it's an analog kind of technique, but it's obviously a digital style where they've layered it and whatnot. But these are all different vectors and different diagrams where they're telling a story, and they've transitioned between different things. So they've used the historic story and then retold it. So they've obviously had to think about how they're going to tell it, the chronology and the timeline of it, what materials they're going to use, and then because it was in an installation area, what type of sound they're also using. Also loads of beautiful typography and cartography, these like old style maps, maps around the world that absolutely fascinate me. A little bit history nerd like that, but it's a graphic style, but it's an illustrative style. It's like a real technique and a real skill that used to be like highly sought after. Loads of inspiration. This another cartography style where it's just like more symbolic. You can think about that as a kind of storytelling and iconography and infographic. Illustration wise, you've got such a wide base of illustration styles, like a really strong themes and like thousands of years of resources that you can sift through, of different stories, different illustration styles, different content, different materials, and different things that have inspired other sectors as well. So even if you're doing graphics, don't stay in your lane in that sense. Be inspired by fashion, be inspired by film or music or other areas like that. We've got some 3D elements here for sculpture. Think about costume design, different textiles. I think that last one would be a nice photograph, or no, a magazine Okay, so I hope you feel more inspired. I hope you feel slightly more motivated to go out, find some inspiration, think about how you are being inspired and interacting with all these different styles, all these different artifacts, materials, typography, brands, advertisements. Every day you're inspired by so many things, you absorb so much content, so much information. So try and sit back, reflect, think about it with your sketchbook, pick up flyers from all over the place, revisit that sketchbook episode from before, later down the line, and visit these other videos about finding inspiration, sketchbooks, portfolio, and the application series. Find out more at www.bluemogu.co.uk, or like, subscribe, comment, find out more in the other episodes below. See you next time.